Hello and welcome back to Over My Dead Pod. I'm Kylie Colwell.
This is Kate Carter.
And I'm Holly Spear.
So we all know about Jeffrey Dahmer, or at least I hope we do, but that's not the one I have for you guys today.
I
But
was
this
about to
one's
say, there's no way.
this one is similar though. This is another story of another Midwestern gay serial killer, one who also had a fascination with death and necrophilia. So in 1994, private investigator Virgil Vandegrift was getting calls from a few mothers of gay sons who had gone missing after visiting local gay bars and nightclubs in Indianapolis. Virgil started looking into these cases because police sure as hell were not. He went to the bars and clubs, put up posters, and asked around for any clues or information. One clue he got was that one of the victims, Roger Goodlett, was last seen leaving the bar with an unknown man in a blue car with an Ohio license plate. Virgil took this information to the police, who could do a lot more in terms of investigating, but they weren't interested. That is until one of Roger's friends showed up to the station. This guy named Tony Harris had an interesting story. Tony said that one night at the 501 Club, another gay bar, he met and went home with a man named Brian Smart. At Brian's giant mansion, they swam in his indoor pool and started to have sex before things turned south. Brian had convinced him to engage in erotic asphyxiation, where they would tie the pool hose around their necks, choking each other. So Tony choked Brian first, but then Brian started choking him back. He wouldn't stop or let go. Somehow Tony was able to get him to stop, and he waited until Brian fell asleep. Tony snooped around the house a bit, trying to figure out who this Brian guy was. He reached into Brian's pants, trying to get his ID, but Brian woke up and, thinking he was getting robbed, chased Tony out of the house. This story finally got the local police's attention because Tony got some valuable information. He couldn't remember where the house was, and he didn't know who Brian really was, but he remembered Brian's car, a blue Buick. He also ran into Brian later and wrote down the Ohio license plate number as he drove off. Police were able to use this and trace the car back to Herb Baumeister.
Not to ruin anything, but isn't his house super creepy as well?
Yeah, spoiler alert, they have Kate's little ghost show actually went there recently.
Did it? Ghost
Mhm.
Adventures. I don't know if we can say their. Can we say their name? We're gonna say it. Ghost Adventures.
Shout out.
Shout out if you're listening.
So, who is Herb Baumeister, aka Brian Smart? Compared to most serial killers we cover, his childhood was pretty normal, actually pretty good. He was born on April 7th, 1947, to anesthesiologist Herbert Sr. and his wife Elizabeth. They lived a very affluent life with eventually 4 kids in Indianapolis. Herb was a popular kid in elementary school, kind of known as a class clown, but also very intelligent. But things began to change when he started going through puberty. It was like a little weird switch was flipped in his brain because Herb became sexually aroused by not only dead animals, but also urine. Urophilia, but the gist is
Oh
that
my gosh.
seeing, drinking urine, or just urinating in general gets you off.
No. Mm-mm.
So little Herb was like asking his friends to let them or to let him drink their pee.
All right.
And then he just started peeing on everything.
This is so okay. All right.
He even peed on his teacher's desk. One friend even saw Herb oddly touching a dead bird, like squeezing it with his fingers and getting the maggots out of it, and he seemed to enjoy it, and he placed the bird in his pocket. The friends that Herb did have were like, okay, we're done being friends with him. He's weird. He's peeing on everything.
Right.
So Herb, from the popular kid to the peeing kid with no friends, and became a recluse. And this carried on throughout high
Mm.
school. No friends, no extracurriculars, no sports, and no dating. So I guess in his young mind, his urges were normal to him because that's how he felt. And once he realized he was the weirdo, he just checked out of social life. Even when he wanted to be friendly or crack jokes with other people, he was just awkward. People described him as having such a dark sense of humor that it was alarming. So not in a fun, jokey way.
A lot of times we talk about kids that we feel sorry for. I'm not having those same feelings. I'm
Is it the
sorry.
peeing?
I think it's a combination, yeah.
I see that.
But I feel like I feel more bad when it's like family or friend abuse kind of thing. Like they grew up like horrible childhood.
Yeah, no one treated him badly. He was just
Yeah.
weird. In 1965, Herb started attending Indiana University, but dropped out after only a semester due to his depression and inability to make friends. His dad was able to get him a job at the local newspaper working in the copy room. Herb was actually a really hard worker and perfectionist and was able to work his way up to the advertising department. But his lack of social skills really limited his ability to bond with his coworkers or move up to any type of like management position. So this led him to quit his job. So Herb's dad was PO'd. He was like, "What the hell? I got you this job. You dropped out of school. Then you quit this job." So Herb's dad was like, "Okay, you need to go back to school, and I'm only going to make you take one class, but you need to do something." So he did follow this advice, and the class he picked was human anatomy.
Oh, that's perfect for him.
Yep, makes sense.
And perfect enough, he was really good in this class and got an A.
Yeah, I bet he was.
He was like, I really enjoy this. This is right up my alley.
But then this wasn't enough for his dad. His dad called him up and it was like, "Okay, what are you doing with all your free time? Like, you don't have a job, you're only taking one class." But Herb couldn't tell his dad what he was actually doing in his free time, which was going to gay clubs and bars to hook up with men. So, to get his dad off his back, Herb joined the Young Republicans like his father had done. At this club, Herb met Juliana Sater, who went by Julie. She was a high school English teacher taking some classes at the university. Eventually, they started dating, and Herb stopped going to gay bars. He wanted to have that picture perfect, rich Christian Republican family life, white picket fence, golden retriever type thing. The two got married in November of 71, but with marriage comes, the hanky panky. And up until this point, Herb was telling Julia he wanted to wait until marriage. Well, now the time is up, but Herb was absolutely disgusted by the thought of having sex with a woman. Julie later reported that during their entire 25-year marriage, they only had sex 6 times, and she had never once seen her husband nude. He would lock the door when he showered, go to the bathroom to change his clothes, and of course, leave them on during sex. Somehow, though, despite only having sex 6 times, they had 3 kids. Herb was working for the DMV to support his family, and on the outside, things were going well, but Julie started to notice he was acting strange or stranger. Julie complained to his dad about his behavior, and he actually ended up sending Herb to a psychiatric hospital for 2 months. Throughout the evaluations, Herb ended up being diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and antisocial personality disorder. Besides the care he got in the hospital, Herb never received any other sort of treatment, medication, or therapy. But mind you, at the time this was going down, we don't have what we have now. They pretty much just had like electric shock therapy.
Love it. Love it.
Yikes.
So I can see why he wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
After the hospital, Herb continued working at the DMV and worked his way up. He was still hardworking, but his coworkers thought he was a nutcase, to put it lightly. Outraged at the way his coworkers and his boss were treating him, he resorted to his favorite thing, peeing on their desk.
No.
Oh my God. Could you imagine?
So this went on for months, and people were catching on. Okay, someone's peeing on the desk. Like, obviously, it's Herb. Like, who else would it be?
Who else?
But the one day he peed on the wrong desk, his boss's, and on that desk was a handwritten letter from the governor. So the boss was like, "Okay, I've had enough." He
The
confronted.
fact that it was tolerated one time is crazy.
I
And they
don't
knew
know.
who it was?
Yeah, I don't know why they let it go for so long, but this one letter that got peed on, they're like, "All right, that's the straw that broke the camel's back."
Maybe they're questionable if it's him, like trying to find out who it is, but really know in the back of their mind.
Yeah, maybe they needed proof. Have to like test the pee. I don't know. But Herb was confronted and he was given an ultimatum: leave quietly or be fired and the incident be made public. So he chose to leave quietly. Herb was like, "Okay, I've had enough. Time to blow off some steam at the gay bars," because he had stopped hooking up with guys when he started dating Julie, but now he's back on the men. He also got a new job as a traveling salesman, selling whatever in Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio. This gave him time away from his family and was also a good opportunity to pick up male hitchhikers and prostitutes. Not sure how long this went on, but eventually Herb's dad got his little Nepo baby another job, this time at a thrift store. He worked there for a bit, learned the ins and outs, and like the other jobs, was pretty good at it. Things were suddenly turning around, and then Herb's dad died. But don't you worry, because Herb had an idea. He was going to use his inheritance money to open up his own thrift store and make even more money with all the knowledge he had learned. This is exactly what he did in 1988, founding Save a Lot Thrift Store, and it was actually very successful. So successful that he was able to open a second location and buy a big old mansion within only a few months. The family purchased what is called Fox Hollow Farm in Westfield, Indiana in May of 88. So this farm was over 18 acres with a 5-car detached garage, 2 stables, riding arenas, all of it. The house itself was 12,000 square feet with its own indoor pool.
Dang, the thrift store market is thriving there.
Thrift stores? Are we missing something?
Should we open a thrift store?
Should we open one?
The same indoor pool at this mansion is where Tony Harris was strangled at, bringing it all back together, which brings us back to the investigation. Police didn't have enough for a search warrant on the farm, really just a theory that they needed to dig into. They confronted her about one of his stores and they were like, hey, we're investigating all these like missing gay men and teens in the area. It led us to you. Would you pretty please let us search your farm? And he said no. Herb then called his wife Julie, who was back at home, and told her the police just showed up wanting to search the home because they suspected them of selling stolen goods in the store. He told her under no circumstance do you let them search it. The police did show up to the house, and Julie also did not consent. I don't know if Julie believed Herb's story because they did stock their stores with things they bought at like auctions and yard sales, so I don't think it's totally unbelievable. But the thing is, Julie already knew about a dead body in their yard
Oh,
And she just kept it to herself.
for now. So the same year this is all happening, their son was playing out in the woods behind the house and found a human skull. He brought it to show his mom, and she obviously freaked out and was like, oh, where did this come from? He showed her, and Julie ended up digging up an entire human skeleton. Then this crazy lady, she took all the bones, laid them out on the dining room table, and waited for Herb to get home from work to confront him with the skeleton.
She was like straight up. She was like, I have the evidence. What the hell is this?
she's obviously suspected him of doing that for a while because that wouldn't be my first thought.
No, I'd be like, someone buried a body in our yard.
Yeah, like we just dug up someone's grave.
Yeah. But Herb had an excuse. He said that it was one of his dad's dissecting skeletons. Remember, he was an anesthesiologist, so he wasn't even like cutting up people. And Herb had collected his things after he had died, and he didn't really know what to do with it. And he didn't want to freak the kids out, and he didn't want to bury it somewhere else. So he just buried it in their backyard. This made total sense to Julie, and Herb took the body or the skeleton back and reburied it. So after this and the police showing up, Herb became super paranoid, as if he wasn't already. He also developed a pretty serious cocaine addiction, and his stores were beginning to fail and facing lawsuits. So things weren't going well. Julie convinced Herb to go spend time at his mom's house for a bit, just relax, get his mind off things. The same day he left for his mom's, Julie went straight to a lawyer, filed for divorce and emergency custody of their 3 kids. The same day, she called the police and consented to the search of the farm after telling them about the skeleton her son found. The search began on June 24th, 1996, and took 3 days with 3 cadaver dogs, Alex, Taz, and Max. Over 10,000 remains were found on the property.
Good God. Individual bones. Oh, yeah.
Bones in fragments. At the conclusion of the search and trying to put the remains together correctly, investigators determined there were 11 bodies buried. All had been decomposed to the point of just being bones, and those bones had been badly burned. The number of bodies and ground to cover has been so extensive that they are still searching the farm today, with another search in 2022 turning up another bone and identifying 20 more locations with possible burial spots.
Y'all, that is crazy.
What?
Get this. The total number of victims we're at right now is 12. Only 9 of those have been identified, but that number is growing. They just identified another victim in May of this year, 2024.
This is crazy. They've been looking since 19 what?
96.
Crazy.
I get 18 acres is big, but I mean, we're coming up on like 20 years.
Yeah.
30 years? How
Wouldn't you just do 1 year and like scope the whole thing?
you would think.
That's nuts.
So I'm going to run through the victims that have been identified so far. So going in order of their date of disappearance, the first confirmed victim was 20-year-old John Lee Bayer, who was last seen on May 28th, 1993. Second was Jeffrey Jones, 31, who went missing on July 6, 93. His remains were the ones that were identified in May. Richard Hamilton, 20, also went missing in July of 93. Fourth was 27-year-old Alan Livingston. He went missing on August 6 of 93, and his remains weren't identified until October of 2023. Stephen Hale and Alan Broussard were both 28 and went missing in 1994. Roger Goodlett, the 33-year-old whose friends told police about Herb, aka Brian, went missing on July 22, 1994 after leaving his mom's house for a gay bar on 16th Street in Indianapolis. The eighth identified victim was Michael Kern, 45, who was last seen at a gay bar downtown on March 31st, 1995. His jacket was later found in Herb's house in a box of things that were set to go to the thrift store to be sold. The ninth victim was Manuel Resendez, a 34-year-old children's counselor who went missing from a gay bar on August 6, 1993. His remains were identified in January of 2024 thanks to a familial DNA sample. All the men were gay, young to maybe middle-aged, depending on what you think middle age is. They were either last seen at a gay bar within a 4-block radius in downtown Indianapolis, or they were known to frequent them. All of the men, except for Manuel Resendez, were white. Another thing you may have noticed is that all of the men went missing in the warmer or summer months, from late March to August. Interestingly enough, Julie would take the kids to their vacation condo every summer, leaving Herb to the house alone.
Ah, so that's when he took advantage of nobody being home.
Which is weird for like a sick serial killer to take months off.
It just didn't work out with his schedule, you know?
But having the house gave him the privacy to pick these guys up from the bar, bring them home, and then do it. So what exactly did Herb do to his victims? The theorized cause of death for all the identified victims thus far is strangulation with a pool hose due to his tendency to do that, and broken hyoid bones. We need to add that to our Over My Dead Pod drinking game.
How many times do we say hyoid?
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like we don't even need to explain it anymore.
If you're a true fan, you'll get it.
Yeah, if you're a
Yeah.
true fan, you know what the hyoid bone means.
So the bodies, of course, were also burned after the fact. But what did Herb do in between killing his victims and disposing of their bodies?
I
So
sense it's gonna get sick.
there are theories that Herb committed necrophilia, but there's no way to confirm that. During the search of the house, police did locate a hidden camera in the indoor pool room. However, they never recovered any tapes that could possibly show what went down. Police also couldn't ask Herb about any of this because as soon as he heard about the search, he fled his mommy's house for Canada. On July 3rd, 1996, Herb shot himself in the head at Pinery Provincial Park in Ontario at the age of 49. He left behind a 3-page suicide note, but of course, no mention of any sort of crime or victim. In the note, he apologized for messing up the park. He blamed the suicide on his broken marriage and failing business. So not the murders thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He also talked about originally going to commit suicide somewhere else, but there were children around. So he was a good guy.
Yes.
Once Herb's body was found and identified, Canadian police got word about the investigation and arrest warrant issued for Herb. A Canadian trooper called the police back in Indiana and told them that he had saw Herb before his suicide sleeping in his car on the side of the road. The trooper knocked on the window and told him to keep it moving. He also reported that on the passenger seat was a box of VHS tapes that were not found in the car after Herb's suicide.
Oh, like maybe from the camera?
From the pool room?
Question mark?
I think he took the tapes from that hidden camera, tossed them somewhere in Canada, and then committed suicide.
I wonder if he burned them.
He does tend to do that.
I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like that's definitely like a move. Because how have they not been found? Well, I mean, there's a million ways for them not to be found, but
I don't know, it's not like a murder weapon. If I found a box of VHS tapes, I'd probably just throw them in the trash.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't even, how would you even watch them? No one's got a VHS player.
I don't even have a DVD player anymore.
No. And I mean, there's so many ways. I mean, they're so the VHSs are so easy to ruin, you know,
I'm sure you just take the
especially
tape
the
out.
ones you like twist back to watch. You know what I'm talking about?
I think those are all VHS tapes.
Yeah. I can't remember. It's been a while.
We're not done just quite yet, even though Herb's dead, because we have the I70 Strangler, who has murdered at least 11 young boys and men, and it may be Herb.
Oh, a connection.
Connection.
Thought you were gonna give us a first two-parter.
So the nicknamed I-70 Strangler dumped bodies along Interstate 70 in Indiana and Ohio between 1980 and 1991. All of the found victims were also frequent visitors at gay bars in that 4-block radius of downtown Indianapolis, where the Fox Hollow Farm victims were also going. All of their bodies were either fully or partially nude, and all had been strangled to death, hence the nickname. The youngest victim was Delvoyd Baker, who was only 14. His semi-nude body was found in a river in Hamilton County. His parents had reported him missing after he failed to return home from the movies with his friends. Later reports revealed that he was cruising gay bars and working as a prostitute. He was last seen with a man in a blue car, the blue car that matched Herb's blue Buick. Michael Petrie was 15 and also a prostitute. His nude body was also found in Hamilton County in June of 1980. Eric Rocher, 17, vanished on May 7, 1985, after being seen at a bus stop going to job interviews. He never showed up for his interviews, and witnesses say that instead of getting on a bus, he hitchhiked with a stranger. His body was found in a stream in Ohio a few days later. 18-year-old Thomas Clevenger was found semi-nude on an abandoned railroad track in Ohio as well. Reports say he also worked as a prostitute near gay bars downtown, but this is denied by his family. James Robbins Jr. was 21 when he left his mom's house on October 15, 1987, heading towards downtown Indianapolis. His naked body was found in a ditch 2 days later. The next one was the only victim identified as being seen with Herb. Michael Riley was 22 when he disappeared after leaving a gay nightclub called the Vogue Theater on May 28, 1983. His naked body was found in a ditch in June. Maurice Taylor was also 22, found topless in a creek in July of 1982. He was also reported as a prostitute. Stephen Elliott was 26 when he was found in Ohio in 1989 in only his underwear. He had come out as gay 10 years prior, leaving the family home and working as a prostitute. At 29, Michael Glenn was a handyman working in Indianapolis. His date of disappearance isn't known, but his body was found in August of 1986, also in Ohio. His remains weren't identified until 3 years later by fingerprints. After being last seen leaving his apartment to go to a local gay bar, Clay Boatman went missing at the age of 32. He was later found in a ditch in Ohio by some kids. The oldest and last confirmed victim was Otto Becker, who was 42. On August 6, 1991, Otto's body was found in a ditch off a gravel road in Henry County, Indiana. Witnesses reported seeing him in the car with another male on I-70 near Indianapolis earlier that day, but none of the witnesses could identify or describe the driver. Our boy Herb was named as the prime suspect in all these additional murders in 1999, not only because of the similarities in the victimology, but also the cause of death. Also, at the time of all these killings, Herb was working as the traveling salesman, if you remember, driving on I-70 on a regular basis from Indiana to Illinois and Ohio.
This is nuts. Like, I feel like, you know how many times I've said this is nuts today? You're putting really good pieces together. It's making sense. I'm going to say it's him. We've caught him. Well, he's dead, but.
Another nail in the coffin. These bodies from the I-70 Strangler stopped popping up at the same time Herb bought the Fox Hollow Farm.
Yeah.
So he had his new dumping ground, his own backyard.
Yeah.
Prior to investigators finding out about Herb and his little murder hobby, they had been investigating these murders pretty intensely, even bringing in the FBI. So there were actually quite a few bodies found in this area, but the FBI surmised that there were 2 different serial killers who just happened to have similar disposal methods. For the victim list I laid out earlier, FBI profilers determined that this killer was a white man, around 45, with a high-paying job and well-respected in his community. They said, quote, "He was likely married but had no intimate relationship with his wife," end quote.
Hmm.
Alarm bells.
How do they do that? You know, like, isn't that, I've always been very curious about that.
I'd love to know the logic behind it.
Yeah.
I wish we could go take a class
That's
or
what I was
something.
thinking too. I was like, I wish we could just like sit in and listen.
Yeah.
There is no physical evidence that ties Herb to these murders. A bunch of people that believe the police are just using Herb as an excuse and not investigate the cases further. There were 3 other men that were suspects before Herb, including Duncan Patterson, August Cato, and serial killer Larry Ehler. Duncan was released after passing a polygraph. August was released after police couldn't find any evidence. Larry, though, was found guilty of murdering 21 boys and young men in the area, making him a pretty good suspect.
What?
You know, just a little suspect.
Just a
The
little.
people that I've never even heard of that have so many victims is actually insane.
Yeah.
So prior to this Larry guy's execution, he gave his lawyer a confession that the lawyer was supposed to read out after the execution. In this confession, Larry confessed to the 21 murders and named his victims. They're all ones that had already been tied to him, and then the other ones on the list were the ones that the FBI concluded were the work of the second serial killer. None of the other victims, now tied to Herb, were on the list. So I think it's safe to say Herb is also the I-70 serial killer.
I think so.
Yep. Everything pieces together, everything makes sense on that. Well, timeline's like a huge thing, evidence as well too. But like the fact that those killings stopped when he got the property,
Yeah.
that's pretty big. And then like the property, they're still to today finding bones. It would make sense.
The local state and FBI are still trying to identify the remains found at the farm and have carried out several searches over the decades. So Fox Hollow Farm has new owners who have been living there for about 15 years. In addition to allowing investigators to search the property, the owners have actually found some bones on their own and have turned them in. There's so many freaking bones are here.
Crazy.
So it has been difficult due to the remains being burnt and crushed, but with DNA technology getting better and better, the victims are slowly being identified. Investigators say there could be as many as 25 bodies at the farm. As of this recording, there have been 12 identified victims at the farm and 11 along I-70, bringing the total to 23. The Hamilton County Coroner's Office has asked family members of men who went missing in the area from the mid-80s to 90s to come forward and provide a DNA sample to help bring closure. They also urge anyone who believes their family member or friend may be one of the victims to call the coroner's office at 317-770-4415. And that is the story of the other Midwestern gay serial killer, Herb Baumeister. What a crazy dude.
Yeah, what a
I feel like
crazy.
there's so many people that go missing and would be hitchhiking or like an easy victim that it's just crazy how many people it could be, could be
That's
his
true.
victim.
Yeah, he's a traveling salesman. He's just out driving alone. I mean, we know he picked
Yeah.
up hitchhikers and prostitutes. I have no idea how many. For Overtime Today, this episode comes out on the 4th of July. So happy birthday, America.
Happy birthday.
Are you guys over fireworks? Like, yeah, they're fun to watch and stuff, but after like 30 seconds, I'm like, okay, I've seen all the fireworks I think I've seen.
Yeah.
Like I don't see fireworks on the reg. So like I sit there and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, but like over the years, how many fireworks can you see before you're like, I'm kind of over fireworks?
I do agree, Kylie. I do get kind of tired of them.
And then, yeah, and then especially on the 4th of July, it's just all night. You may go watch one little fireworks show and then another one pops off.
I don't know
And it's
how
just,
it is in Florida where you guys live, but in Arkansas, people buy fireworks in bulk and then they shoot them off all throughout the week, where they go on sale and they buy up and then they shoot them off way after the 4th of July, and it's completely unacceptable to me and annoying.
exactly. We should have a set ordinance. You can set off fireworks on the 4th of July only. Let's wrap it up by 11 p.m.
People spend so much on fireworks too, buying them from the stands, that I'm just don't understand.
No, I went to Sam's Club yesterday and they had them all out there. And it's like the cheap boxes or whatever. They're still like $80.
Yeah, they're crazy expensive just for like a 1 second of entertainment.
Kate, I don't think you're agreeing with us, are you?
No, I'm not on board for this one. I don't.
I think
I
fireworks shows are
fireworks.
fine. Fireworks shows are fine, you know, if like if a place wants to put them on, but why are people allowed to buy fireworks?
They're not in a
Stupid.
lot of states.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like Florida for me was the first time. I didn't know you could buy them in Arkansas. Florida's the first time for me that was a state that you can buy fireworks. Because
Oh,
like
we love fireworks down here.
North Carolina, you can't buy fireworks. You have to go to the South Carolina border to go get them.
See, and then growing up near Charlotte, when the South Carolina border's like 30 minutes away, is like they're not even banned at all. I think we're just gonna rename this section like the hater portion of the episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most of the time it's what do you guys hate today?
Yeah.
Do you guys hate anything else right now?
What do you on a different I'm completely hijacking this. What are you guys doing for the fourth?
My neighbors are having a fireworks show.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Who's supporting the fireworks? Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah, not
They're the
even big
new.
fireworks. At home, Kylie's supporting at home fireworks.
Right.
DIY
Okay.
fireworks show.
Well, it's not like I can really miss it because their house is 20 feet away from my house.
So you're still into them enough to look out your window at them.
It's kind of hard not to. And with that, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Over My Dead Pod. If you want even more information, you can check out our blog on overmydeadpod.com. Be sure to leave us a review wherever you're listening to this and check us out on social media at Over My Dead Pod. And if Holly doesn't get eaten by a shark, we'll see you next week with another case. Bye.
Bye.
Just go on without me. Bye.
We will. It's okay.